Okay, call the order of the Select Board of March 10th. We'll be going into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, as soon as I get it. Sorry.
Yeah, you want this?
No, I got it. I got it. To Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, we will be discussing new Labor Council regarding outstanding litigation matters, Hodgson versus Officer Gregoire, Human Resources Director, Interim Town Administrator to conduct strategy sessions in preparations for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Labor's Union MOA to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of a public body and the chair so declares. Same thing with Hodgson and Officer Gregoire to discuss strategy with respect to litigation and to review and possibly approve the minutes of executive session minutes of January 9th, January 2nd, and January 27th to 2025. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mickelson, seconded by
Mrs. Brooks.
Mrs. Brooks. On the motion, any questions? Roll call vote. Mr. Tattlebaum?
Yes.
Mr. Mickelson? Yes. Mrs. Brooks?
Yes.
Chair votes in favor. We'll be returning close to 5:45 as possible. Thank you. Call to order, reconvene the Select Board meeting of March 10th. Please rise as we salute the flag, and please remain standing thereafter. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing as we offer a moment of silence for our service personnel, both here and abroad, and both past and present. And please be seated. Okay. We have a presentation, but before the presentation, we're going to do a piece of new business real quick. We have the new Labor Council to discuss and approve. Mr. Savastano, introduce.
Yes, Melissa Murray is somebody who I highly respect. I've dealt with her in several different circles, the Mass Municipal Lawyers Association. She was recommended highly to me by Howard Greenspan, who I greatly respect and did a great job for the town for a number of years. So she's here. If you want to talk to her, I know you've already met her.
Please introduce yourself. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, evening, I guess at this point. Thank you for having me. Melissa Murray, partner at Norris, Murray & Peliquin. We're located in Norwood, Massachusetts, and we provide municipal labor and education services to cities and towns and school districts.
Okay. Well, I personally reviewed the package that was sent, and I'm very impressed with the credentials of the firm and I'm more inclined to follow along with town council's recommendations. So, board members have any questions?
No, I just wanted to point out that she represents a number of municipalities, most of them similar in size to us, and also not Dartmouth Public Schools, but other school departments, including Greater New Bedford Regional Vocational Technical High School. So I feel that she's also aware of our area and our niche.
Yes, thank
Anyone
you.
else? All right, what's the board's pleasure?
I would like to move forward that we hire the firm, which I have now lost the, here I go, Norris, Murray and Peliquin, LLC, as our new town council. Beginning tomorrow. And Labor Council,
right,
Jesus.
And I'll be just been
Boy,
promoted.
and this is what happens. You come to them, can you imagine you miss a meeting and you're out of work? So of Labor Council, and starting
Effective March 11th.
March 11th, 2025 through June 30th, 2026.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. On the motion, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, unanimous.
Thank you very
Congratulations.
much.
Good luck.
Thank you. Good luck.
I look forward to working with all of you.
And we're looking forward to it.
See, Sean, this was me trying to not always be the second, but clearly I'm not ready to be the first.
I think your niche is second.
Okay. Know your place. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so right now we have a municipal broadband feasibility study presentation. I thought Peter was going to handle it. I guess not. Okay.
My name is Kevin Estes, for the record. I'm the chairperson of the Municipal Broadband Committee. The purpose of our committee was to analyze and develop a feasibility study. We have employed the services of Entry Point to do a thorough analysis of the background of Dartmouth in a relatively non-competitive area of internet access. As you all know, we've got pretty much one choice in most of the town. And the idea and the concept was to take a look at what kind of an opportunity is there, what would it cost, and what would all the ramifications be of providing our own municipal fiber. So I want to introduce Jeff Christensen from Entry Point, who's going to review the feasibility study and take a look at some of the opportunities, and then question Jeff with questions that relate directly to the feasibility study, and I'll make a quick closing statement.
Great. Jeff.
Thanks, Kevin. Jeff Christensen, Entry Point Networks. So this data is now a year old. We started this process probably 18 months ago, and finished it Q4 last year. But I want to walk you through the data. When we started the process, the town was in a different situation than the town's in now. Kevin was just updating me on some of the progress where you have an independent ISP interested in building infrastructure here, and Verizon having received grant money. So I'll cover that. But when we started the process, it was very much just Comcast that was viable. And so the data is, I think, relevant and important for you to understand, but also important to understand that where we started and where we are today are two different places. When I first started working with the committee, I shared some of the content that Kevin Kelly's created. He's the founder of Wired Magazine, and he wrote a book in the 1990s about the new economy, which was the internet economy, which we're all very familiar with now. We're now shifting to an AI economy. But this was one of his statements, that communication is not just a sector of the economy, it is the economy. I think that is the case. Without communication, then you don't have a viable economy. So that's an important starting point. In terms of the feasibility study, these are the main areas that we focused on as we worked our way forward. We spent a chunk of time on strategy and strategic issues as it relates to infrastructure, communications infrastructure for the town, and then worked our way through these other issues as we worked with the committee. The committee was easy to work with, they were engaged, they were well-led, and represented the town well in the process. In terms of speed, so there's a service out there called MLabs, which is a public body in Washington that tracks speed tests. So anytime you run a speed test, they'll track the data. And so you can basically, in a free way, understand what people are getting in speed tests. The result, the sample size here was very large, and it's embedded in the report. Essentially, what they're showing is that Comcast speeds were 112 on average as a download, and 19, almost 19 as an upload. That's sort of barely acceptable. It barely gets you by. More of the economy now runs on uploads. When you're doing Zoom meetings or team meetings, you're tapping the upload, and so that matters. So it's viable, but not, everybody, the standard people want now is symmetrical gig, so 1,000 up, 1,000 down is what people want and they're looking for. Verizon, the reason you've got really Comcast or Xfinity as the main provider is that Verizon speeds are 22 by 3, which is not really viable. And so people are not going to gravitate to this service when they can pay roughly the same and get much better speeds out of Comcast. Assuming that Verizon builds everywhere in the town with the grant money they got, they will likely do a symmetrical gig, as will this other ISP that's coming into the town. So it's going to get more competitive, which will force Comcast to be more competitive in there. They'll have to do some upgrades to their equipment to remain competitive with these others. In terms of costs, when we sampled this data, we pulled this from their website. This data is probably 12 months old at this point. But you can see that a gig is 1,000 up, 1,000 down. They're advertising a promotional rate of 70 at the time, and then standard pricing of $115 with a $100 install. So people look at the gigs as the sort of the market speed they're looking for. So without the promotional pricing, you're at $115. And we held a number of sort of town hall events with your residents. Peter and I went around, and the most well-attended was at the senior center, and that $115 rate was corroborated. A lot of people were paying in the $115, $120, and not happy about what they were getting for that price. Verizon, what they're showing here, I think they're so not viable with their copper what they're showing here is their little, coming off their wireless network. So they've got a little receiver that they'll put in the home, and so you're getting a wireless service as opposed to a wired service with this, and a promotional rate of 50 with standard pricing at 60. In the survey data, when we conducted this, so we got over 1,000 residents who responded to this. The two things that were most important to them were speed and reliability, and what that tells you is that's also their source of frustration, that they were not satisfied with the speed and reliability that they were getting, most likely from Xfinity. And then price would be the next. So they were willing to pay a little more if they could get something reliable. So that's good to know as we look at this other data. How was the reliability? How was the speed? Strongly weighted between poor and good, with very few in all of these as excellent. Overall speed, you've got 44%, 45% in the port of fair, good at 41%. Overall cost is more heavily skewed towards, I feel like I'm paying too much for what I'm getting. You're above 90% in port of fair, so people feel like I'm dealing with a monopoly here, which is what they are dealing with, and paying too much. And then customer service, again, port of fair, and that may be some. To be honest, Comcast has gotten better with customer service over the last 10 years. They used to be terrible, and they've gotten better. And but here you're.
I guess going from terrible to really bad is probably a good.
I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to argue with you. I mean, they were downright just like, we know we don't have any competitors, so
Yep.
you know, deal with it. But strongly in the port of fair, you've got again 80% plus there. Okay, and so the question we were asking, the real genesis of this is that we had done, prior to working with Dartmouth, we had done 12 other feasibility studies in Massachusetts, ranging from Quincy in the metro area to a lot of towns, Fairhaven out here, New Bedford out here. So the question was, should the town seriously consider putting in infrastructure so that the residents have an alternative that's viable? And so that was really the question. And so first question, at what price would you consider a fast, reliable connection to be affordable? And people really are saying between $40 and $80. It's affordable. That's what they're looking for, something between 40. 40 is probably unrealistic in today's world. Just to put the infrastructure in, you're not going to be at 40, but you could put in municipal infrastructure below 80. Should the town of Dartmouth consider building a community-owned fiber network? And you know, at the time of the sampling, strongly, for those who responded, the town should strongly consider it for where people were at. So just so you understand fiber, as we go forward, how important it is to have fiber so that you're viable going forward. The dots represent the size of the pipe, and this is actually understating it for fiber, but the pipe for fiber this is not an exaggeration. It's that much bigger than all of these other media. So cable and even 5G is, you know, a pinprick compared to fiber. And fiber travels at the speed of light minus some friction, so nothing travels faster than the speed of light. So you know, people always ask us, is something going to replace fiber? And we don't see anything replacing fiber because it does travel. I mean, they'll improve the friction, so they'll improve the performance of the fiber. But it's important that the town gets fiber, and it sounds like Verizon's putting in some fiber and maybe ubiquitous fiber. They're not very good at sharing their plans. They kind of do what they do without saying too much. And then this other ISP would also put in fiber. So it appears that Dartmouth is going to get fiber, which will improve the competitiveness of the market overall. So if the town were to put in fiber, it matters whether it's aerial or buried in terms of cost. We were projecting between $65 and $70. What's not embedded in this data is if you went aerial, what would pole replacement cost? That's a variable. If you're going to do anything aerial, that's potentially very expensive when you don't own the poles. So when we work with cities that do own their poles, it's a non-issue. But if you were to deploy an aerial network, you would have to work with the pole owners, which I think is the electric utility and Verizon.
Yeah, it's both.
And they would require some make-ready, and you can't know what that's going to cost until you get into it. And it can be very expensive. So these numbers are without any make-ready data. So what would the total cost be, not on a prescriber basis, but what would the total cost if the town were to take this on? And you know, you've got a range here of 29 million up to just under 37 million as the cost of the project. The thing that made us nervous as a committee was how many square miles you've got as a town. I mean, it's different than building a network in Fairhaven because you've just got a big land mass. And so when you think about deploying infrastructure across the whole town, it's a big area. But you know that. All right, in terms of risks, there's a risk assessment in the report. If the town were seriously thinking about deploying it, it would be important to dive into each of these risks. Not to sort of make you nervous, but you need to understand what the risks are. They're all manageable. And so as you go forward, I think the recommendation we would make at this point is watch. What do these two private companies, what will they do? I wouldn't move, I wouldn't recommend that you move at this point, given that you've got two companies deploying fiber in some level. I would wait and watch and see what they do, and do they cover everything, and is their pricing in a market rate? But I wouldn't recommend that you proceed when you've got activity that's relevant activity at this point. So, but if there comes a day where you decide, we're going to deploy either partially or fully, then the risk assessment becomes important. The three key areas that we built the report around are these three issues: ownership and control. So what does it mean to own this infrastructure, and how do you solve the ownership problems as you proceed? Governance basically means how do you maintain and operate it? What are the options that are available to you? It would be a new category for the town, and so would you outsource that, or would you build a department? Quincy actually is deploying a fiber network, and they're going to work their way into operating it, not necessarily bite it all off at the beginning. So they'll use contracted partners initially. But that's an important area. And then the last is the business operational model. And what we mean by that is you can either do it as a single ISP and be the ISP, have the town be the ISP, or you can do an open access network, which is what many municipalities do. And what open access means is you provide the infrastructure, and then you let any ISP, or you may say we're going to choose 5. You maybe do an RFP and say we're going to have 5 ISPs. So the model is really like an airport, where the municipality owns the infrastructure, the airport, and then Delta, Southwest, American, they're all private companies that pay to use that infrastructure. So that's open access, and that's what Quincy's deploying. But that's often a driver for municipalities that jump into this. So what are the advantages, disadvantages? For a municipal owner, much lower cost of financing. So their cost advantages are really in those first two things: lower cost of capital, and there's no profit component. So there's not a for-profit motive in it. Towns are more likely to do open access, which improves competition and improves price often. The negative is that it requires a lot of political capital and will. You got to have somebody that's really, I think you've got it in your committee in terms of the motivation to do something like this, a big infrastructure project, but it only happens where there's a political leader that is really driving it. So it requires that. And then a private owner, cost of money's higher. There is a profit component. They're often backed by private equity. The single ISP model is common, so you get one new competitor in the market instead of 5 new competitors. And then it is vulnerable to becoming a monopoly. So the industry will get rolled up in the next 10 years, we believe. And so we're going to go from nationwide, probably 300 viable ISPs to 4 to 6, we think. The cable industry, I've got a couple of slides on it. Let me just show you the cable. So this is what happened with the cable industry. Comcast was a small company in Mississippi and started acquiring, figured out how Wall Street worked, got more access to capital, started buying all these cable companies, and now there's really a handful of cable companies. We went from 1,000 to 5, essentially. So this story will, we think, repeat. Happened with Charter, happened with Comcast and Cox. So let me go back to this table, though. So this kind of just breaks down public ownership versus private. Cost of capital in the municipal world's 4 to 6% versus 12 to 24%. They finance it differently when private equity is involved, but at the end of the day, the cost of money is 12 to 24%. The cost of a gig connection with public ownership is going to be 65 is a good target number. Private ownership, you're going to be 75 plus. I think the private ISP talking to the committee is looking at a gig for 85. So 75 might be a little conservative. Advantages, just long-term control. If you do it publicly, private, there's no guarantees required. It's the easy button. The disadvantage is that the town would more than likely have to guarantee the debt, at least for some period of time. You could get to the point where the network backstops the debt, but if you did it for some period of time, the town would have to backstop it. The negative with private ownership is the network can be sold, and we believe will be. It can get rolled up. Verizon will probably be in for the long haul, but the smaller ISPs around the country will probably get rolled up. And in both cases, you'll get fiber. So, in summary, public infrastructure is designed to deliver maximum value for the lowest possible price, and the good public networks do this really well. But it does require the political will and political capital. Private infrastructure requires nothing from the town and is likely to be pulled into a national consolidation. Verizon will not, most likely, but I think that's a fairly good summary. So.
Okay. Board members? You want to start, Gary? Go ahead.
So thanks for coming in for the presentation. I know that the committee's been working on this for quite some time. You talk about funding and this project and the onset. In your sense of other communities comparable to Dartmouth, or even the city of Quincy, for instance, was it a conventional borrowing that kicked it off and then set up as an enterprise fund going forward? What did that dynamic look like?
You can do two mechanisms. There's legislation in Massachusetts. Quincy will do an enterprise fund. That's the path they will follow. The municipal light legislation allows you to do it in that way. And so it's particularly out in Western Mass, some of those towns have done municipal light plant. But those are the two mechanisms. Quincy's project will probably be big enough. The city is willing to backstop it, but I think their project's going to be big enough that they'll probably be able to have the network itself backstop the debt, which means the general fund may not be at risk, but we have to work through. We're in the middle of that right now.
So in a follow-up to this, to that question, have you seen any communities that engage in the process and then Comcast or the other carrier would come in and then cut that price even further.
Yeah.
Compete with.
Yeah, it was more common 10 years ago. I think the market's so dynamic right now that there's a lot of private equity money coming into the market. And so Comcast would pay attention to a municipal project over here because there was only 10 of them happening in the country. So they could go kind of extinguish those. But now they're, in every one of their markets, they're getting overbuilt by private equity money. And so they have so much going on. Kevin was just talking about, or Peter was, one of the two, that Comcast is trying to get 5-year commitments out of their customer base. And that's because they're getting attacked on every side by private equity overbuilders.
Anyone else? Mr.
Competition's
O'Neill?
good.
I didn't get, Kevin, the introduction. I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
Jeff, yes.
So, Jeff, Chris O'Neill. So, the financing or the grant program on the private side,
Yeah.
all right?
Yeah.
Is that federal money, or is it?
Well, some of it's coronavirus capital fund, so it's still federal money, but it comes through the state broadband office. So in either case, there's BEAD, which was Biden's infrastructure money,
Okay.
his infrastructure bucket. Most of the work that's being done is either being done coronavirus capital fund, so money that came out during COVID had to be allocated by the end of last year, or BEAD, which is $42 billion, part of the Biden infrastructure money.
All right, so was that the program that Vice President Harris was in charge of?
Yeah, well, yeah.
All right.
Yes.
And what happens if, all right, we bring in private, they start doing the work, and there's some kind of clawback that,
I think once the money gets allocated, I don't think it'll get clawed back. And what I expect with BEAD, I don't think it's settled yet. I mean, there was some activity today down in Texas. Texas is talking about giving their BEAD money back. You know, you can understand it in your town. The suburban part of Dartmouth probably will cost between $1,500 and $2,000 per passing. So the infrastructure cost would be in the range of $1,500 to $2,000 to put in. You get out into the rural areas, you may have some passings in Dartmouth that are 25,000. So rather than 2,000, the distances are so great that it's 25,000. And I think the conversation happening at the federal level is there are some, like we're working on a project in California where it's over 100,000
wow.
per passing.
Yeah.
And so you start to ask yourself, shouldn't we just give them a subsidy to tap into low orbit satellites, Elon Musk's satellites, where it's $150 a month, but you know, you're not going to spend $100,000 for that home if you subsidize them into eternity.
Right.
So that's the conversation happening is where should we cap the cost per passing where it's not rational to spend more than $10,000 or $20,000 per passing. And once you get above that, just force them to satellite. Say, if you want to live in that rural area, satellite works, pay the $150 a month.
On the public, well, it would be on both sides, public or private. The cost of the agreement for the owners of the poles, Verizon or who's got it, Eversource.
Yeah.
We have no idea what that number would be.
No, because what happens, they see it as an opportunity to replace poles that need to be replaced.
Right.
So two things, you got to find out how many poles have to be replaced, and that can be a big number. Yep. And then you have to move what's already there, potentially, and that's called make-ready. So if you've got to do a lot of make-ready work, if you're touching every pole and moving all the wires that are already on the poles, that can be a big number. So I think the ISP that's coming into town is going to skip that, and they're just planning to put it in the ground. And so they'll probably be talking to you about either directional drilling, which tends to be 3 to 4 feet below the surface, a lot of them want to do micro trenching, so they want to cut your roads with a 2-inch cut and put it down 12 to 18 inches, which is less expensive than drilling. So you'll want to pay attention to those issues and then work with your road department on what would micro trenching mean versus directional drill.
And the last thing is that you had mentioned some type of discount programs. These guys are trying to lock clients in now,
Comcast,
anywhere
yeah.
from 2 to probably 5 years,
Yeah.
right? So your recommendation is to wait to see how that shakes out, see what kind of penetration they get, or?
Yeah, I mean, if I was a consumer here, I would wait to see, since you've got competitors coming in, to sign a 5-year deal in this environment doesn't make a lot of sense to
Right.
me.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense for Comcast, but it doesn't make a lot of sense for a consumer.
All right, thank you, Sean.
Okay. Mrs. Brooks, you have anything?
I guess I want him to go back to the slide that shows the, not where we are with Comcast, but what are the potential networks coming? A couple more.
Yeah, and I don't know that we have any on the new ones coming in. The ones coming in are Verizon. Verizon's here, but they've just
Yep.
got copper, which means they've got, we call it DSL, digital subscriber line.
Okay.
It's really slow. They're coming in. They did get grant money, and that's information from these two. So the question is, will they build the entire town? The grant money will be for your rural areas. It would make sense for them to do the suburban areas because that's a lot less expensive. But they'll probably do that with their capital. And then the other one is a company out of North Carolina, and their private equity firm is out of Connecticut, a company called Post Road. And you can go on their website. What's the name of it again? Ripple Fiber. You can look out on their website. They put $85 as their gig price right on their website. So, and I think they're in process with meetings. Is that, you can speak to it more, Kevin, when you come back up. So, it makes sense, I think, both for your decision-making and for the consumer's decision-making to allow this to play out. It's a lot easier to finance projects when you're the first fiber being built. If you're the third fiber being built, meaning there's 2 other fiber networks already, it gets harder to finance because it's harder to know what your take rates are going to be.
All set, Mrs. Brooks?
That's all I had, yes.
Tattelbaum?
I'm glad to hear your recommendation is not to jump too fast because there's such a market pressures from all direction. But
Yeah.
I just look at the pushback from different directions. I got to believe that Comcast is not going to sit and let their business disappear. So they have many options. One is to improve their own technology.
Yeah.
The second is they have price control, which they can control in a marketplace. It seems to me that may be a possibility. But the other is the technology. I look at AI and it's changing. He cared that within 2 to 3 years, AI is going to be been fully assorted, ready to go. And I have to believe this technology, be it satellite, whatever, so that it seems hard to invest too quickly in technology that may be changing even a lot faster than you or others in the industry may think, because it is dynamic and it's a gigantic marketplace. So it's worth investing in doing things in the marketplace because it's a giant business. I can see why Quincy would work because it's such a dense population. It's
Very
greater
dense.
Boston. The average income is very high.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot of techs out there who want the fastest speed possible.
Yeah.
And it's perfect. It seems like we would be like the other end of the spectrum where we wouldn't be it's just too big.
Yeah.
So it's a great job. I'm certainly in favor of waiting because it's such a dynamic marketplace, but it's a huge market that people are going to be working hard to get business on, which means the technology in the marketplace is going to change awfully quickly.
Yeah.
In my view.
Yeah, if we were in the same place we started, meaning if Verizon wasn't building fiber and this other Ripple wasn't building fiber, our recommendation would be for the town to take it seriously and not necessarily jump to building, but to continue the effort to analyze it.
But you're putting a lot of faith in fiber by doing that, even to consider it. And do we really have the right to do that, considering the technology in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, may not even be near fiber, but that's just
Yeah,
my own perspective.
satellite, nothing competes with fiber. It's not even close. And it moves at the speed of light. And so you know it's going to be viable. I'm very comfortable saying fiber is going to be viable 50 years from now, which is strange for a technology category. But anyway, it doesn't matter because I'm still, at this point, I would say wait.
Thank you very much. Great job. Great
out.
presentation.
Thank you.
Mr. Mickelson?
Good, no, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, well, when we started this 2.5 years ago, things were a little bit different, as you said.
Yeah.
One being Verizon had absolutely no interest in doing any upgrade of their stuff in this entire area.
Yeah.
Because their infrastructure was so old. And they had absolutely no interest whatsoever. In fact, they've told us they had no interest whatsoever. So, and then at the time when Comcast had their spike in pricing, but their decline in service, yeah, it made sense to try to look at something like this.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward 18 months, 20 months, it's a little bit of a different landscape.
Yeah.
So if Verizon has seen the idiocy of their ways and want to do something here, okay, that's fine. And now you have this other new company. I don't necessarily agree to digging into our roads. I mean, we have enough problems, maintaining our roads as it is, with 220 miles of road in this town. It's a significant cost for us. Now to have somebody come in, even though you're talking a 2-inch
Yeah.
wide.
And I don't know if
still.
they're going to recommend microtrenching. They
Right.
could drill, and drill would preserve your roads. So the reason
Yeah.
to drill is that you're not cutting up your roads. So I
Even
would
then, I'm
wait
kinda-
and see what they propose.
Because, I mean, even drilling in this area is going to be difficult because, we're gravel-based.
Yeah.
There's a lot of gravel underneath here. Just ask any farmer,
Yeah.
digging in the fields, and all of a sudden, that's where all these stone walls came from. I mean, they just didn't magically appear.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but, I mean, let's put it this way. You've given us, the committee has given us something to think about, and at least now we have some data to go through and take a look at. And if the idea is to kind of take our time, I don't have a problem taking our time. I mean, especially when you're looking at, a system that could potentially cost you up to $36 million.
Right.
Taking our time, yes, very much so.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the opportunity to have a municipal broadband service, I'm still in favor of it.
Yeah.
But as much as I was in favor of it 18 months ago, I'm probably 10% less in favor of it right now. So, but I personally appreciate the effort you put on and the committee has put on about this, because, we can't have the answers unless we ask the questions. And now we have, I think, a good part of the answer.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it. And
Yeah. I'll give it
thank
back to
you,
Kevin. Or Peter.
I have one question, Mr. McDonald, and it may be something that either you could answer or Mr. Tattlebaum. Was the broadband put on the long-term capital planning list? No.
As of now, it is not.
Okay, thank you.
One thing with the private ISP that we're talking about, we've had some preliminary meetings with myself and Tim Barber. I think they're planning on coming to one of the, what's it called? The technical reviewer committee meetings that happen twice a month. So they're going to come to them to talk to them about some of their plans. And then we also recommended that at some point in the near future, they come before your board just to introduce themselves and let you guys know exactly what they're looking to do.
Right.
But we figured we'd get, the feedback from conservation, planning, DPW, and so they can look at all their plans and figure out what they want to do. So
Right.
they're not looking to drill in your roads tomorrow. I can promise you that.
I know that.
They are fully aware of the moratorium on roads and the types of stuff that they need to do on the roads. And one quick thing is, Kevin's here, but also you have
your whole committee has been great. Chris Vitelli and Mike Corville have been other staff members that have been on this committee that have served it well over the last 2 years. And I think Kevin's going to talk to you about what the committee would like to see in the future, or some guidance from you guys on where they want to go from now.
Well, I can tell you this right now, the committee isn't going anywhere. We're not disbanding the committee, that's for sure.
Well, I think I have my answer.
Okay.
In all seriousness, though, we had a great process. It was very community engaged, and thank you to Entry Point for doing a fantastic job of gathering the appropriate data and developing good options based on their knowledge and experience with towns that are in the area similar to ours. So we value their participation. Thank you very much, Jeff. Having fulfilled the initial purpose, I wanted to bring up the concept that all of the members none of us have any interest in disbanding, as long as it suits the needs and the desires of the select board. We will maintain a wait and see in terms of what we see in the area, and we could be used as a resource for further either investigation, action, or planning.
Well, I can't speak on behalf of the other five, but I have absolutely zero interest in disbanding this committee. So.
Okay, great.
I will second that, because I think that as we look forward to the two other, what Verizon's going to do, what Ripple Fiber is going to do, it would be great to have people who have been focused on this for the past few years to have their head in the game on what's going to be best for the town, what's going to be best for the townspeople.
Plus the fact, if we keep Peter busy,
Yeah, he's not busy
go anywhere
enough.
for a while.
Lastly, Sean, I think the committee's done the town a great favor by forcing some competition and forcing some price pressure, just for the simple fact that they've done the work to come up with alternatives to Comcast. So when they
Very
see,
publicly so.
when they see the high five, they can thank this committee for doing that, because they feel the pressure already, and they're coming forward discount program. So thank you, Kevin. Nice job.
When you're ready.
Go ahead,
I'll
Dave.
accept the thanks for the whole committee. Thanks.
Thank you. David?
I think what might help is that our long-range planning committee is planned to make a presentation at town meeting, upwards of spending as much as $300 million over 30 or 40 years, and to give us perspective of what kind of projects are ahead of us, be it schools, clean water, water and sewer, and where this may or may not be included or be affected would be a perspective I think would be much more evident when you hear what we'll be facing up against going down the road. Because it is, no matter how it's financed, how we do it, it is a long-term investment if in fact there's interest in viability in the project.
One quick plug: if the committee is staying together, we do have one open seat for a member at large. So if anyone wants to join us,
Thank you.
come on.
Put it on our website.
Yes. Make sure we get it out there.
You handle that?
All right, well, thank you very much.
With that said, are you all good?
Thank you. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda, we have the change of the, doing the business application, Tailgate Sports Bar and Grill at 227 State Road. Do we have anybody here for that? All right. Well, as everybody knows, Rico's Pizza is now closed. The people who had the license for Rico's Pizza is looking to operate it, change the style of business, I guess, to more of a sports pub type of thing. So they want to change the common vic and the alcohol license with entertainment from Rico's Pizza to Tailgate Sports Bar and Grill. What's the board's pleasure?
The sign is already up.
Yeah,
Right, well, yeah, that's, sign's already up.
after the fact.
Yeah, so.
No,
I
well,
mean,
they haven't
can't-
opened. So, I mean, if they opened and then they come to us, then that's a different
That's a
story.
different story.
So
So-
they haven't opened yet, so,
They're not open?
no, they're not open.
I'll move to,
Move to approve?
approve the DBA application to Tailgate Sports Bar and Grill,
there a second?
227 State Road, Dartmouth, Mass.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Motion made by Mr. Mickelson, seconded by Mr. O'Neill. On the motion, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Unanimous. Okay, next we have a constable license, Alex Rodriguez Sr.
Senior.
How you doing?
It'd be him.
My name is Alex Rodriguez Sr., and thank you for having me.
This is a new license, correct? Correct. Okay. All right. Looks like we have approvals by the necessary people, specifically the police chief, which is good.
It's a good start and finish.
That's the most important one. And plus the fact he paid the fee, so the paid the license fee. So that's also
Okay.
important, too. So, board's pleasure.
Motion to approve the application.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Mickelson, seconded by
Mrs. Brooks.
Mrs. Brooks. On the motion, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none unanimous. Okay. Housing Production Plan Committee Representative Appointment, Mr.
All set, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I apologize. Good luck. All right, thanks. Once I get going, I think this can't stop. What's that? Huh? I don't have it. I don't have that. What is this, anyway? I don't have, no. All right, we're going to table the Housing Production Plan Committee representative because we don't have any information. All right, so next we have a renewal of the entertainment license of the VR Zone 200 Mall, 200 North Dartmouth Mall.
That's in the mall.
That's in the mall. Board's pleasure.
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Mr. Mickelson, seconded by
Mrs. Brooks.
Mrs. Brooks. On the motion, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none unanimous. Okay, I didn't Labor Council. This is table. All right, Sealer Weights and Measures appointment, Ray White. There he is.
Yes.
There's the guy behind the stickers.
That's the name.
All right, now we know we have a face behind the
Finally get to
stickers
see
at
the
the gas
face.
pumps.
Where's the scale?
Right there.
Oh, wait.
So let me ask you a question.
Very good.
All right. I think this is probably, most people don't know. What exactly do you do as the sealer of weights and measures?
We inspect, test, and seal all commercial devices out there, such as gas pumps, your deli scales, anything that's used to sell, buy or sell from.
Terrific. And if anybody has a question with the pumps, they would contact the town, they would
Contact
contact
myself.
our office, who would get in touch with you, and you would make the necessary inspection or
Yes.
see whether or not somebody's putting their
We
thumb on the
respond to all
scale. Or
complaints.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it. You know, I tell you, to be honest with you, you see the stickers around, and you're wondering, what does this guy look like? Now we know what it looks like, so when I look at that sticker, I say, hey, I know this guy.
I'm going to put a picture on the next
got it.
seal.
Board,
Motion to approve.
motion made by Mr. Mickelson, seconded by
Mrs. Brooks.
Mrs. Brooks. On the motion, any questions? All those in favor of the appointment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Oh, boy. All right, annual town election warrant approval. Guess who's coming up?
So nice to see you too.
Wow.
Such a warm welcome. I'm Sarah Haskell-Aruda. I'm the town clerk. I'm here for approval of the annual town election warrant. The annual town election will be held on April 1st. No snide remarks. From 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the various precincts that we've had them at for the last 5 years.
Board members?
Motion.
Approval so that we can hold an election that nobody shows up to.
Motion to approve.
Say that. Second by Mrs. Brooks.
Motion made
Is
by
that all
Mrs.
right? I'm going to be on the,
Motion made by Mrs. Mickelson, seconded by Mrs. Brooks.
can I second it?
Yes, you can. You can. It's not a conflict,
Okay.
because it's overall the whole thing.
All right, just making sure.
All right, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none unanimous. All right. You're all set.
Can we stamp it for you? Can we stamp it, right? We can stamp it. Give you a stamp copy.
Do I need you to sign the board members are going to sign the last page of the warrant.
Can it be stamped?
It sure can.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
You have it with you?
No, I've got it. We'll stamp it.
It was sent to you.
Okay, all right. Stamp is okay?
Yep.
Okay, all right.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
All right, thank you. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too.
See you next election.
Oh, I'm sure I'll be here before then.
I'm sure, too. All right, next item on the agenda, we have the Rogers Street Boat Ramp to the Warren Hathaway Small Boat Marina at Dias Landing, ARPA transfer.
So, Mr. Chairman, having spoke to the Waterways Committee, they're looking to speak with Kevin to change the allocation that was given out to the Rogers Street Boat Ramp to another project that they're working on. In your packet, you'll see the confirmation from our town accountant saying that it is okay to do that, and Mr. Murphy can speak a little bit more in detail on what the new project is.
Go ahead, Kevin.
I'm Kevin Murphy, the Waterways Chairman. It's recently come to our attention that there was an ARPA fund copay for the Rogers Street boat ramp to accompany the Seaport Economic Council $250,000 grant, and thus the town has to put in a copay of 20%. There were a number of flaws that were that happened as that Rogers Street grant was applied for. Typically, when you apply for a grant, the Seaport Economic Council requires a feasibility study. And for some unknown reason, this particular grant application went through without approval from Waterways, I might add, for a feasibility, a planning, a design, an engineering and permitting build. It's my opinion, in talking to various engineers, particularly Patrick Resendes from Forth, that should a feasibility study been initiated, the design of this project kind of would have fallen apart right at that point. The basic solution to the sand migration problem down there would be the construction of a jetty, and the initial thought was that we could make a smaller jetty just a little south of the CBC pier, which goes out substantially, and that would stop the migration of the sand downstream. I was told, particularly by Patrick Resendes, that the 90-degree jetties just are not allowed anymore, and that's about the only solution that would solve the sand migration that's currently building up all over the Rogers Street area. The other problem becomes that if you do a feasibility study to find that out, you have to use the copay first. So that would essentially be the ARPA money that's kind of been allocated for that project now. And through information, what I found out, that even the feasibility study would deem that as non-doable. So I think it would be more prudent to apply, and also the ARPA money, from my understanding, is that as long as the project was under contract before December 1st, 2024, it would be available for ARPA funds. The particular contract for the future Warren Hathaway Small Boat Marina was signed back in May of 2024. That particular project was permitted for more than is built because the build was too expensive to do the whole project. So the project was permitted. It's already permitted to be larger than what's contracted right now. And this $50,000 would enable us to make more space down there. Currently, we have a waiting list for the slips and the dinghy spaces, so we could certainly turn that into a viable use immediately. So I'm just asking, I've spoken to Andy Herlihy down at CBC. Andy has indicated that the synergy between the two projects, it's more of an area-wide thing that he would be interested in. The boat ramp per se is not something that's going to do a whole lot for the CBC in their planning process. As far as the change, also the additional floats could be done by way of a change order. It would not have to go out to bid because that number is a small portion of the overall contract. So the existing contractor could do that construction without having to go out for bid again. The only small fly in the ointment, we could have the floats built now, but because of the study that was done down there, the piles in that particular area will not be able to be driven till after September 30th, I believe. So that would we could have the build of the floats and have them delivered there. The piles would be able to be driven after the September 30th deadline. And I just asked that. I've had some discussions with Gary about this and Roger Race of Waterways and Andy, and just asked that you consider putting these funds from the Roger Street project over to the Dias Landing.
Questions from the board?
Oh, go ahead.
I have
Kevin,
one.
Mr. Mickelson?
Does the permit, is it specific for the L shape of Dias Landing now? Would this go beyond the permit scope?
No, the existing, it's been short-built
Okay.
to the permit because we were running out of funds. So we had to hold back on the build, although the design and the permitting allows us to do more than we have there now.
I'm good.
My question?
We're going to Mr.
Okay.
Mickelson, and then we'll go to you.
So what are we going to do about the Roger Street issue with the sand?
Unfortunately, as far as the sand at Roger Street, I think that's just going to be the way it is. It comes downstream, and stops at the CB.
There's absolutely nothing that we can do to stop that.
No, well, I mean, you build a jetty, that essentially,
We're not gonna build
and
a
the
jetty.
downside of a jetty, when you make it shorter, eventually sand is going to build up on that side of the jetty, and it'll go out and overflow and come back onto Roger Street anyway. So it's really a non-functioning ramp. I mean, it's access to
no
the
one
water,
uses
but
it.
for all intents and purposes, that's
Correct? No one uses it at all, really.
no. You go down there right now, and it's a beach.
Right.
I mean, they replaced. I think Tim sent a crowd down there one time and set up some wall area and some ramp, and next storm later it was all gone.
Yeah,
So it's
sure.
just sand right now.
That's too bad.
Yes.
Mrs. Brooks?
Kevin, did you mention that we applied for a Seacoast Economic Development Grant for Rogers Street?
No, what was
Or received one?
the project got started about 3 years ago. There was a discussion with Jerry Hickey, myself, and board members, and it was, well, we're going to, can we do anything about the sand here? And yes, we can. No, we can't. And it was decided that, well, let's apply for a grant and let's find out how feasible this project is. And unfortunately, when the grant was submitted, without our review, it was expanded to this $300,000 project. And it just, in talking, Forth didn't even want to do the project, and they felt that this wasn't going to be a viable project. So it's all kind of moved on. I don't think much has been done on that to date. That award letter was sent to the town in August of 2023, I believe. It's already a year and a half done, and I'm not exactly sure what's been done to this date, but nothing that Waterways is aware of.
So we received a grant?
The grant will go back to the $250,000 would go back to Seaport Economic Council, but I think that would be better for the town if we just turn the grant over instead of starting to dig into it and using some of the money and saying, oh, this is never going to fly. So I think it would put a better foot forward on the town for future grants.
That is my question. I want to make sure that Dartmouth doesn't get a black eye.
Right. No,
for this.
I think you'd be better off,
Okay, thank you.
to resubmit
Got a few
that.
Seaport grants anyway. So
Yeah.
They know.
They know
what
we-
do and
yeah.
what we've done, so.
Yeah.
All right, so what's the board's pleasure on this?
Question here.
Mr. Titlebaum, sorry.
A couple of things, Kevin.
Sure.
You mentioned a lot of what-ifs to make it happen over on Dias. Are we confident that these what-ifs are, A, legal and possible, and what's your position on Waterways? Has Waterways voted on all these policies?
We have a meeting tomorrow, but I mean, we originally voted for the whole permitting and engineering process. The only reason it wasn't totally built was that we ran short of funds on the contract. When the contract went out, the contractor said, well, we can build you this much, we can't build the whole thing, so.
But Waterways has not voted on eliminating the Roger Street project yet?
Waterways, really, that wasn't their project. That was submitted by the town. We have no copay in that. We didn't review the project. And
TPW issue. It's a DPW issue, correct? Roger Street?
Yeah. So if we spend any money down there at all?
what's that?
If we spend any money at Roger
No,
Street?
not at Roger Street, no. A couple of backhoes down there to dig out some sand.
What does Waterways need to vote on to make this happen and use this money someplace else?
I don't think Waterways needs anything. We just need, it's a transfer of the ARPA
Need our
fund.
vote. They need our vote to take the
Need your-
ARPA
you need
funds from
to-
Roger Street and put it onto the
Okay.
Dice Landing.
Select Board's vote.
Okay, and what about the future of that area? What do you recommend, or what, can Waterways come back to us and say, let's regroup and do something different, whatever that might be?
That's been the feeling already, is to let's, and especially with the conversation with Andy, that maybe we can do something to better coordinate with their project that they've got in the works
Fine
over
area
there.
there. So can we count on Waterways to come back to us with a recommendation what to do with the area?
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly come back with some kind of recommendation. It all kind of falls back on a feasibility study again, but
I
not a
understand.
$300,000 one. And that grant was specific to the
I
boat
guess what I'm
ramp.
saying is, rather than just eliminating it and seeing it just no plan, can we count on Waterways to come back and say, here's what we should do, we recommend it, come back to us?
Sure, we'd be more than willing to
Fair
do
enough.
that.
And this, my colleagues here? Okay.
But I mean, it's going to take us time to develop.
I don't know what it is, how long it'll take, but
Yeah.
who's going to tell us better what to do with it than Waterways?
We'd be, absolutely, there's got to be a better use of that than there is now. Unfortunately, with that being a hazardous site at one time, you know.
It's terrible down there.
Kind of get restricted to what you can do, so.
Well, no, 100%. The CSO's right there.
Right, so.
But on the other hand, you may come back to us and say nothing, but I think, but
no.
whatever that might be. Fair
something-
enough?
Fair enough. Something is better than nothing.
Thank you.
ARPA funds. What's the board's pleasure?
I move that we allow the APA fund transfer from the Rogers Street boat ramp to the Warren Hathaway small boat marina.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Brooks, seconded by Mr. Mickelson. On the motion, any questions? Mr. O'Neill?
Tim, is that going to be a problem for transferring ARPA funds? Are you going to see anything from the
Tim?
county?
No, he's getting paid.
Well, this is federal revenue replacement money.
Oh,
Not
okay, it's
county money.
replacement, okay.
Yeah, county
All right,
money,
good.
that's, yeah, this is federal.
Yeah, we're all set with that.
Guess who that is?
Okay, any other questions, comments? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. All right, you got it.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next item on the agenda, we have the sign locations at 461 and 491 Fons Corner Road.
So, Mr. Chairman, this was a petition from Richard Bonds, who is a real estate agent out in Marion, and looking for relocation of signage on the two addresses that we saw here in a zone that the town is looked at in the past that is saying is off-premises commercial signs. So I think maybe Tim can speak on this in the past, and I know Chris had some, maybe some comments on it also.
Yeah, I'll give you a little background, and then Tim can get into the particulars on the right-of-way. So, Mr. Chairman, this is a request of the town to authorize.
To the town.
Yeah, to the town, to authorize a license for the placement of signage in the right-of-way on Fons Corner Road, 461 to 491 Fons Corner Road. That location, let me preface it by saying I'm filing a disclosure of appearance of conflict of interest also, 268A, 23B3, because I actually insure the contractor that owns the land. However, the petition is coming from the tenants. So the tenants at all those locations, including Dunkin' Donuts, Solar Cannabis, Fallon Medical, Edward Jones, Ascent Audiology. These are all businesses located on Fons Corner Road that are interested in moving the signage that they have placed there now, or future signage, into the right-of-way at designated locations. The tenants, through Mr. Barnes, had come up with in past commands at Land Company, had come up with a plan, an engineer plan to place these signs closer to the right-of-way, because the location is really at a disadvantage when it comes to just the signage, because the right-of-way bears east, where other properties on Fons Corner Road really don't have that disadvantage, I guess. They're a little bit closer to the roadway and more of a standard location for signage. So those particular businesses are looking for some relief going forward for the placement of the sign. And the only place that I could find with reference to placing signage in town-owned property is Article 1, Section 298-1, use of public or private property for off-site signage. And I'll just read you a little bit of what that says, if I can find it. Yeah, I got it. So no person shall in any manner affix any bill, placard, poster, or paint, draw or write any words, figures, or devices upon any property in the town bordering on a highway, on land not his own, without the permission of the owner, or, and this is where it comes into play, or the person in lawful control of the property, nor, sorry, this is where it comes into play, nor upon any town property without the consent of the select persons who may issue consent pursuant to rules and regulations they may reasonably formulate. So essentially what the bylaw says is that if it is on public land, which this is, it would be up to the select board to issue a license, similar to the license that I think we gave the guy on Reed Road to use the land at the dog kennel. Remember that one? So we had legal draw up a license for that use of town land for a particular time. The owner of the land is willing, working with Tim, to agree to move the signage if for whatever reason the DPW needs access to that area under their cost, obviously. They would be willing to move it if for whatever reason, say the water line had to be moved, fire plug had to be moved, they would move the signage. So if that's built into the license, then we would give back the advantage of better signage in more standard signage location in that area to those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think there's a 6th business in that location also. And I'll let Tim get into the particulars if need be. Thank you.
Yeah, so that section of right-of-way, and Mr. O'Neill alluded to, was an older section of the layout. And when the roadway was moved to the west, that right-of-way was kept because there were utilities within that right-of-way that's not under the roadway. So that's our concern, is if there's a sign close to the water main, there's also a gas main in there, and there's an issue and it needs to be repaired, there'll be a sign close by. So I would always recommend an alternative analysis on location if there's any other way to locate the sign behind the right-of-way. Similar to what we do when we're looking at road design, sometimes we provide alternative analysis to choose the best location. The concern is when once you allow structures within the right-of-way, it kind of opens a can of worms for, future commercial projects. The one stipulation that we did state that we would require the setback from the utilities at least a minimum of 10 feet, similar to a utility easement. So nothing would be able to be built within 10 feet of that water line.
So let me ask a question. Did the petitioner go to other departments in the town, or did they come directly to the select board?
The original.
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
The original request had come in from Mr. Barnes, Richard Barnes. And I believe that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, it's through an email, but the question is, did they go to the planning board, the DPW, building commissioner, you know, whatever they needed to?
Yeah.
I mean, to come directly to us, I mean, to be honest with you, I wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah,
You know, and, you know, as I'm driving on Fons Corner Road, I mean, I see solar right on the open. There's nothing in front of it. I see Dunkin' Donuts right in front of it. There's nothing there. There's no trees. There's nothing hiding from them. So why do they need a sign on the road saying, hey, here we are? All you need to do is look at, and they're right there.
Which is why I recommend an alternative analysis on another location outside of the right-of-way.
Yeah, I mean, I
evaluate
can
that
understand
location.
if there's tenants going to be built in the back,
Yeah.
which I think there's going to be, and,
Yes.
you know, at least, but there should be there should be a process, and to come just to us
No, if I
without
can-
any kind of,
Let me just correct that, Sean. The plan, the engineer had sent the plans to Tim back in October, November? October and November. So the DPW has had the plans, the engineered plans, to show placement of the utilities. They spent the money to go out, do the, find the utilities, number one, because obviously nobody wants to plug through a water line. So they had the engineers go out. They did the placement of all the utilities in the area. They did an example of a placement where the tenants would like to see the signs. I mean, this isn't right on Fons Corner Road. It's still, relatively close to what all the other neighbors in that particular area enjoy, as far as proximity to the to Fons Corner. But the process was, the plans were requested by DPW. The DPW got the plans. From what I understand, there was no alternative location determined since October or November, and the tenants continued to ask. So the alternative was, if the license is approved, would the DPW be okay with the setback, proper setback of 10 feet, and the ability to, or the requirement that the proponent move the signage if directed by the DPW director? And they agreed to that, so.
well, without the lack of a report from the DPW on this, I can't make a decision.
I can't
So,
either.
You know, I need to see something in writing as to where it is, and even then, I need to know how close the sign is to the water main, how close it is to this. I mean, I'm trying to remember if we ever did sign stuff again, and I to be honest with you, I don't recall the Reed Road one coming before this board.
Not for a sign.
Yeah, the Reed Road property was the use of town property for construction of a building
Oh,
and parking
yeah,
and
okay,
and
yeah,
lay
that's-
down of materials.
And that was only for a temporary use. Right, okay, yeah, so that's not even close to this. So, I mean.
Hold on, before we get all worked up,
not worked
okay?
up.
I'm just saying.
No, I
Before we-
just want to see the process. I just want to see the proper process in doing this,
Yeah.
instead of just going from A to Z. That's all.
Yeah, so I don't know if Tim brought the plans for the.
I didn't, so the initial plans, the proposed signage was within 5 feet to the water main, and I told them that was a no-go. So they did relocate it 10 feet from the water main, but on the west side of the water main, which is closer to the road, to Fons Corner Road. So that's why I thought an alternative analysis should be looked at.
If it's the recommendation of the Director of Public Works to have an alternate look at it, then they have an alternate look at it.
Yeah,
So-
I agree.
Because they moved it closer to the road, we're also working, with Mass DOT for the consultant for the reconstruction of that corridor of Fons Corner Road. So if they move it closer to the road and that section of land is needed for a widening of a sidewalk or a shared use path or anything, it'd be
That's a
in the way,
possibility.
yeah. And Mass DOT would require, if they're going to construct a project, that any structures be permitted and licensed by the select board.
I want to just make sure that this is, Mr. Tattelbaum?
I don't know who the builder is, and I'm sure maybe the tenants maybe one, the builder's responsibility is know that they didn't have the right to put it on the right-of-way in the first place.
Not on the right away.
No, they couldn't put it there, so they had
Yeah.
to know. So the tenants are probably mad because the signs, in their view, was not effective, because why isn't it close to the road? Well, the builder knew in the beginning they couldn't do it because it was on the right-of-way. I also think it could be precedent-setting to do this sort of thing without, first of all, let Mr. Barber go ahead and maybe, and if there are any alternative location, because I think precedent-setting is a dangerous hill to climb.
Yeah, I believe the other tenant signs, other than Solar and Duncan, they're lower signs, right? They're basically just address signs. So
Look at this at a later date.
they haven't built anything substantial, a substantial sign for those other tenants.
My recommendation would be to have Mr. Barnes contact Mr. Barber and discuss an alternative location and have them take a look at it, and then to go through the necessary channels that need to be before it comes to here. So whether or not there needs to be a site plan review by the planning board, or it needs to be reviewed by the building inspector for the sign location, I mean, that's really the way it should be done. And that's the only way that I would look at this.
Yeah, so I would recommend also a site meeting for them to pre-mark the location that they're looking at, and also, to review and see if there's any other alternative
I have no problem with
locations.
it. I have no problem with any of that, but, as a reminder, this has been going on since October, November, and if any of these things, were required, then they should have been requested, and we should just nip it in the bud. If it can't be done, it can't be done, but when you look at that right-of-way goes way, way east, and, we can all agree that if you look at it on paper, and they obviously don't have the ability to look at it right now, but, the argument can be made for hardship over there.
Right, but my understanding is that when the developer proposed the entire project, that was also part of the proposal of the project. So the developer knew right away going into that was the right of way. So, I mean, we're trying to,
Yeah, it's an accommodation. If you don't want to
combination of things.
accommodate, then you don't accommodate.
But I would
It's
prefer
not
this
an
to come
accommodation,
the other
it's
way,
just-
so.
Right now,
Typically, with kind of a plaza like that with multiple tenants, you're going to have a sign easement location on the developed property. That's approved during the planning process. I don't think that was part of the original planning process.
Okay, so we'll move on. So if you can reach out to Mr. Barnes and whoever,
Yeah.
and just say, look, you discussed it with the board tonight, and this is what you'd like to do going forward. Okay?
Tim, if it can't be done, it can't be done. It is what it is.
Yep.
You
Yeah,
know,
we'll
but-
look further into it. We'll meet on site and see what the best location is.
I mean, this isn't a no. This is just, let's take a
No,
look at it.
yeah, I get it.
So,
If it comes before us again, could we make sure that we have an actual
report and whatnot.
plan? Because I've pulled up what I can on Google, and I have an idea of where we're talking about. My other piece is, in thinking about what's along Fons Corner Road, what was the decision made for the signage between McDonald's, for the folks that are behind Restaurant 99, the Kia, that sign that's there, was that public property? Was that, I kind of need to know a history of where these signs came from.
To be honest with you, that entrance going into the 99, the Kia and all that, that's sort of like a gray area as to who owns that. Because I know there was a giant pothole there one time, and somebody tried to talk to somebody about it, and it was like, what? Who owns it?
Who's
And
paying
nobody
for it?
knew.
That location's private. It's the Lowe's entrance. Same thing. There was a pothole there, and that's the Lowe's entrance is the old layout of Fons Corner Road that goes
Right,
old
right,
Fons Corner Road.
right. We know
Okay, so,
that.
and that
But-
signage
yeah.
would be the same thing, where you used to have a Christmas tree shop and all of that.
Right.
So I would like to know, these signs, where do they fall in? Are they same or different to be considered?
Yeah, we can come back with that.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you, Tim.
You're welcome.
All right, next item on the agenda, we have the Bridge Street Crosswalk.
Mr. Chairman, we have Officer Canario here tonight.
Hey, he's right there.
Request was made to look at the location, also Tim here, location of the flashing lights, almost similar to what's on State Road, Route 6, and replace it with what's there now, which is pretty not noticeable if you're out there as a pedestrian, so Tim can talk a little bit about that.
Around the perimeter, there are red lights go
Those
around.
are noticeable.
at Bridge Street.
On Bridge Street.
Okay, on Bridge Street. Okay.
But it's a perimeter of lights that go around.
Yes.
Yes, right.
So we reviewed the location and met with traffic safety and decided to look at the possibility of a rectangular rapid flashing beacon crosswalk sign, which would be solar powered. It'd be the regular crosswalk sign with a rectangular flashing beacon on each side of the sign, and each side of the street activated by push button for pedestrians. So we looked at estimates, and there's a contractor under the state bid, a vendor that quoted the entire package, including the poles, for $7,800. So we have estimates for the installation as well, about $2,000, and then it would require a concrete base. But we do have a couple of concrete bases from the school signs that were put up, the speed limit, flashing speed limit signs. So we may be able to see if those would work for this project.
My question on that is, if it's installed, will it be used? Because I'll be
Pushing the
honest
button
with you,
piece.
there aren't that many people that use the crosswalk that's there now. There aren't that many people that use the corners now. They go from one building to right across in the middle of the street, and we had that unfortunate accident that happened. But I'll be honest with you, all these years going down the village, not too many people use crosswalks. Because the road is so narrow, it's so easy just to go jump from one area to another, boom, boom. You may use it.
The woman who was hit was using the crosswalk.
Was using the crosswalk, right, yeah.
The second woman that was hit, because there were two that were hit down there.
We have an opportunity to do something.
Right.
Something
I understand
that's
that.
positive.
I understand
and
that.
I would make a move that we vote in favor of
Yeah,
it tonight.
there's no doubt about it. There should be something there to help people.
My concern is the pushing of the button. Because I know driving through all over the place that they're very often, I'm going to use Dartmouth Street, people cross, they haven't pushed the button, or they push the button, then they cross, and then finally the light shines, and now we're all sitting there for no one. But seeing those flashing lights, which remind everyone that this is a crossing, so would what you're proposing, would the flash come on only when I push the button, or would it always be on?
No, it would be only when you push the button.
So the ones that are on Route 6, which we were talking about, are always on?
No.
They're not supposed, no?
No. No, as a matter of fact,
Eye-catching.
the one on Connecticut Avenue doesn't get used at all. The state
like to-
installed it, and it's never been, I've never seen anybody use that crosswalk. Right, Old Westport does, yes.
I'd like to say something here because I think this is really unfair. This has been vetted through the DPW and from our fire safety officer. He's made this recommendation. There's no need to be negative about it. It only help.
I'm not being
Where's the
negative
negative?
at all.
Where's the negative?
The first thing you said was people are crossing, don't use crosswalks.
They don't.
Okay, that's negative.
That's not negative, it's reality.
So
I mean, it's true. You
I
can't-
support this. I just wanted to make.
David, you've...
I support the idea of it. I didn't know if we needed the a mounding that would make people take note to slow down. I was hoping that we'd come back with that sort of mounding. Now, when I said that two people were hit during this past holiday season, when we had the unfortunate death of one woman crossing within the crosswalk, we had a second individual hit around the corner that only resulted in broken hips, broken shoulders. Only. Wasn't a death. But I think overall, in the congestion, whatever we can do in Paydnarum Village, and any spot within the town where there's heavy pedestrian use to make it safer for pedestrians, we need to do.
So I recommend the push button, because to have a flashing light 24 hours a day, one, it gets annoying, and then it gets like you expect it because it's always there. So the push button, it's there for safety, and if people want to be safe, they should push the button and cross in the crosswalk. But you're not going to force everybody to cross in a crosswalk.
So maybe for a little
there
bit,
were jaywalking laws, but they're not enforced.
maybe for a little bit more money, maybe we can explore the pads. Some communities have the pads where they step on and they flash, where they're not having to worry about reminding themselves to press a button. I know, like in Mystic, Connecticut, they use those, and it's pretty effective. All they have to do is step on the pad, almost like the pads that they use for the blind. Set up
The
something
detectable warning pads. Yep.
like that. They're picked up and they just.
Yeah,
and they
we
can
can look at the cost estimate for that.
But I do want to know about, I feel like that berm, I'm not even sure what the technical term is.
So it's a speed bump. So
Speed bump?
hump.
Well,
Hump.
what I'd like to mention is.
Speed hump.
They have portable speed bumps now. They're not permanent. Move them around, pick them up, move them around. They do it in Rhode Island, Providence, Rhode Island, all over the place. We don't need to build a permanent one. But during high ticket, high volume in the village, maybe that's a good idea to put one on each side. I don't know where you'd put them, but I recommend that we do not make it permanent, that's all.
Can I just say something, because I think about this with
Please come to the. You got such a soft voice, nobody's going to hear you from over there.
All right. First of all, the lights coming on, the flashers, don't forget this poor woman was hit because the sun glare was so bad in back of her. So you should think about the lights, if they're going to be even seen. The other thing, the raised mound is really going to help with people coming off the bridge the other way, because there's huge speed going on there. So a raised mound both ways would really speak to it, that's all.
And both mounts should be before the bridge on each side, so. All right.
could we have Officer Canario, because he knew what the technical terms as I was goofing around.
You might as well, you're
But
here.
I mean,
Might as well hear you.
I just feel that the two of you have looked into this and you didn't
I want to start off by
recommend
saying
the
I'm not going to say too much
speed bump.
in regards to the accidents that occurred down there, because they are still under
Under
investigation with the
investigation. I
district attorney's
understand that.
office, and there's stuff that can't be disclosed. However, looking at the totality of the safety down there for everything, you are correct. People don't like using crosswalks. They want to do things quickly, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't make a safe place for them to use it. The crosswalk where the fatality occurred, I would have never supported that crosswalk being constructed, and my opinion is it should be removed. Not because of what happened in the accident. I'm talking about total other direction, people entering the village. Mathematically, it doesn't make sense, if you can understand that. Mathematically, that crosswalk does not make sense. When you took
Clarify that. You're talking about the thinner one closest to the bridge.
the
Could you
crosswalk
clarify
that goes to the new
Maritime.
bathrooms
Yeah, the
down there.
$1 million bathroom.
The one right at the base of the bridge. There isn't enough visibility, there isn't enough, when you do the math for the speed limit with the average person's perception reaction times and the average vehicle deceleration rate. When we went there, my colleagues that do crash reconstruction, we ran some numbers doing it mathematically, and you had like barely 2 seconds to react to someone in that crosswalk coming over the bridge into the village. Nothing to do with the accident that happened there, total other direction, but that's why we wouldn't have supported it, because it's 2 seconds. You've got to harbor, there's a lot of distractions there that could absorb 2 seconds of time.
The fishermen.
And what we're saying is in 2 seconds of time, if you go 3 seconds, you may not be able to stop. Like, just don't have enough time and distance to stop for someone in that crosswalk. It's not in a good location.
So it was installed without the safety officer's input?
It was before my time. I don't know.
I'll ask Joe
there.
Vieira.
But the one we're referring to is the one that's at the Water Street, Bridge Street intersection. It's got the red brick
That was part of the
design. Yes.
whole project
That's,
with.
that's where the push button would be a big plus. It's not going to solve the problems. I agree 100%. If this town was serious about public safety down there, pedestrian safety, there also should be a mechanism that would require people to use the crosswalk. This town doesn't have that. So
So are you saying that we should have,
Bicycle, maybe a cop on a bike.
but there's nothing you can do.
Jaywalk.
This doesn't exist. Unless the town adopts it in the bylaws, it doesn't exist. There's nothing you can do.
We can get it adopted.
so should we have the crosswalk,
New York
eliminate
one,
that
jaywalk would be nice.
crosswalk and put the crosswalk from Water Street to the Needleworker?
absolutely.
Back there?
Yes, and encourage that use, and hopefully most conscious
'Cause
people
that gives
would
people
use the
more
button
time.
because they want it to be safer. Now, I've said this before, I'll say it again, I'm not a fan of adding crosswalks everywhere. To me, in today's day and age of distracted drivers, because I have to deal with it every day when I go to work, crosswalks do unfortunately give pedestrians a false sense of security. You can go in that crosswalk, you have the right of way, and you belong there, but if someone's distracted and things go wrong, the car wins every time. So it doesn't matter whether you had the right of way or not, the car wins every time. So
You see it on the crosswalks at Fons Corner Road and Route 6. When the light goes on,
well,
you're supposed to stop, including the right-hand turn from Old Westport Road onto Route 6. They're supposed to stop, but yet they continue all the time. So if that crosswalk is being used there by somebody who pushed the button, they got those cars coming out of Old Westport Road to contend with because they don't stop.
yes.
So,
But at the traffic signal crosswalks, if people push the button and they have to wait until it signals them to go. This is an instant. The one at UMass, Crossroad, I call it UMass because it's primarily for the UMass students.
fine.
That one is
That's
very
all.
effective. It's a 4-lane road, speed rated zone, 40 miles an hour. You see those things flashing. It is very effective.
Yeah, but
I
not
don't
then,
really
not then.
feel we need a raised pedestrian crosswalk there.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know, I could get you to study, we've done more than one speed study of vehicles entering the village, and speed going into the village is not a factor. We've mounted our.
Even without the bridge, if the bridge is open for traffic, people aren't coming across?
We've done studies, because it was a
Okay.
concern, we had complaints of it, so when we get a complaint, the first thing we do is do our traffic study there, and we did, and there were no speeds that concerned those entering the village. It was where they should be.
Mr. Tattlebaum.
Steve, you were considering, so we're going to paint over, eliminate the small crosswalk at the restrooms? It'll be,
That would be my
that's part of the
recommendation.
plan. And are we considering a reduced speed sign coming over the bridge towards the paid Narrum as well?
We can't do that. I
Can't
mean,
do that.
there's 25 mile per hour advisory signs there. Speed limits are governed through the state, through the,
Okay. So are we voting on eliminating in your recommendation, eliminate the small crosswalk and then put the lights onto the main one at Water Street? Is that what we're trying to do here?
that's my suggestion, to have a great step towards making pedestrian safety better in the village.
But eliminating that smaller
Yes.
crosswalk? Okay, thank you.
I'm still in favor of the speed bumps, especially the portable ones, especially coming over the bridge into the village. Before you get to
I
the,
think that's another-
before you get to
Yeah.
the
I think
crosswalk.
that's another study.
Yeah, the problem with that, I mean, those were looked at a long time ago, and there were concerns about drainage. If you build a speed hump, is the water not going to reach the drain? Then you're going to have a flooding problem, and it's not as simple as just bumping up the
And
road.
snowplow as
I-
well.
Well, that's the beauty part about it, they move them when the snow comes.
Oh, you're talking about temporary.
Correct.
Uh,
I'm not talking about permanent speed bumps.
I don't.
They're all over Rhode
yeah,
Island,
They are, but
everywhere.
I don't like them. It can be problematic for motorcycles in wet conditions, and
Well, there's a way around it. They've constructed these beautifully. There's a cutout on each side, and the emergency vehicles know it's there, and you go around it, and you don't go over the speed bump. It's a pretty good deal.
honestly, it's not an area of my expertise. It's not something that's commonly used in this area. If you'd like me to look into them, I will.
Please do.
It's not something that I'm very
City of Providence.
familiar with, so I'm not going to speak
Right. Look at-
positively or negatively about something that's
Look at the
not in
City
my
of
wheelhouse.
Providence, they use it all over the place.
All right, so what's the board's pleasure on this?
Do we need a motion for this?
Yes?
I'd like to make a motion that we eliminate the crosswalk in front of the Maritime Center. And is it currently nicely painted?
Yes.
Okay. We endorse.
Although the Maritime one's not, it's just two white lines.
No, but the
The other
other
one
one,
is red
which
brick.
would be from Water Street to the Needleworker, be the primary crosswalk in the village at that point, and that we do install the safety signage that was recommended.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the motion, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, unanimous. Unanimous.
I'd also would like Officer Canara to take a look at the movable speed bumps. Just look into that as Mr. Mickelson said, if we can look at something like that during high traffic times, which would be during the winter holiday season, and perhaps there'd be an opportunity in the summer as well. Perhaps
That would also be in conjunction with the DPW, because the DPW has to install those into the road. And those type of devices, you need some type of a device in the road where you can screw them into. I'm well aware of those speed bumps because we use them on a private road where the town of North Kingstown has access to a boat ramp through our property. And we use them, in the summertime. We don't use them in the wintertime. So, because nobody uses the boat ramp in the wintertime anyway, so. But
if we could just have that and then have
Look into it.
Officer
No, I
Canario
can tell
return
you-
to
yeah,
us.
I can tell you that the area where I put those portable bumps, there's not, I think maybe I get 10% of the traffic that the village gets. So that's the one thing you also have to be careful of, is the amount of traffic, because these things do wear out,
Oh,
so.
good to know.
All right, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda, we have the amendment to the Municipal Aggregation Services Agreement. And we have our,
Just in time for a $50 rebate.
hi,
Hi.
what's this about?
So I'm Kathy Stanley. I'm the energy manager for the town of Dartmouth.
Yep.
It's been a while since I've been before you guys, so
It is.
I'm going to take advantage of this opportunity to update you with a little bit with respect to this aggregation. Back in November, we had a little update with our consulting firm that handles all the work for this aggregation. I started working for you guys in January of 2020. It's been really amazing that it's gone by this fast. And this program initially launched in January 2016, so it's been a while.
Yep.
Our initial, our current contract details go from December of 23 to November of 25. So our contract's going to expire in November. We're going to go out to bid. It's a good time to do that. We want to definitely be ahead of this with all the craziness going on in the world right now. Our current rate is 15.7 cents. Our savings since our launch for residential, small C&I, and large C&I has been just shy of $20 million that we've saved our constituents as part of this.
Great.
Looking back at the graph since 2016, knowing that we contract for our electric supply costs for our aggregation over a period of time. Sometimes we try to go for 3 years. We don't always get there, but that's what we shoot for. We're not always below the utility rate. Sometimes the utility rate bumps a little bit below that. But looking back to 2016 from current, that's happened twice. So that gives me a lot of faith that we're doing the right thing for our constituents. We have some action items before us. We're going to be going out to bid to secure new pricing on this contract. That's going to happen hopefully over the next month. And as part of that, we have been asked by our consultant, Good Energy, to consider an increase in what they charge us for their fee. They have never asked for one before. And as we all know, resources are tight and costs have substantially increased for everybody. So The cost that they are asking for is something that they have reviewed with all of the members of this aggregation, of which there are more than 20 different towns, I think, that are part of this. It's been unanimous amongst all those municipalities that they agree to this cost increase. Let's see, their fee increase will only affect the average user by 15 cents a month or $1.80 per year. So that's the ultimate impact. And that's what we're asking you to approve, is for Gary to go ahead and sign these agreements. We need to be ready to go when we go to bid. He needs to be fully able to sign the contract once the pricing is secured. That will happen within 1 3-hour period. I believe we'll go to market. We'll ask for some indicative pricing. The indicative pricing will come out. I will be on that call as well. And then maybe about a week later, we will decide on a target date, and then we will ask for pricing, and we will secure that pricing that same day. Every municipal leader needs to execute the contract or it doesn't stick. So that's our process. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Anybody have any questions?
No.
Yes.
Kathy, do you, let me see, how do you communicate with your ratepayers? Do you have a set amount of communication that you do with them?
A couple things. The town of Dartmouth has a website. On that website, I have 5 municipal customers in Massachusetts, and I think ours is the best. It's right on the front page. You see it says Dartmouth Aggregation. You click on it. It takes you right to a website that's specific for the Dartmouth aggregation. It gives you all the information that you need, what you're paying now, what the utility's charging, what your choices are, if there's a more higher renewable energy rate available product that's there, who to call if there's a problem, Constellation's number, Good Energy's number, they're all right there.
Right.
So it's really very user-friendly.
So you're going to have a period of time between the rate setting and the installation of the new rate for?
Yes, our new rate will go into effect in November.
Is there any proactive communication to the rate holders?
Yes, our consultant, Good Energy, who is asking for this increase, they do a great job of communicating directly with all of our residents. They put direct communication out with our residents to let them know when there's going to be a rate increase, how much it's going to be, what their choices are, their ability to opt out, how they opt out if they want to do that, and if there are any other higher renewable products available for them to choose from as well.
When do you anticipate
that usually occurs about a month before the rate change takes effect.
People at home should, if they're in the aggregation program, they should be looking for a postcard, an email, something in October for
Yes.
The change in rate, so they can make a decision as to whether they want to stay in the program or not.
Correct. In addition, my cell phone number is on that website.
Great.
So I get directly any calls from the residents of Dartmouth that want to talk about this. And I probably fielded 6 calls this year. I'm always happy to take them because I get some feedback. What do you think? Are you happy? Is everything going well? Is there anything you want to complain about? And it's overwhelmingly positive. I mean, occasionally you get residents that are older, confused. They just need someone to walk them through the process. I'm happy to do that. I always end the call with, if you don't get satisfaction or what you need, please call me back. I never hear back from anybody. So I think it's really being handled well with our website.
All right, sounds good.
Right.
Anybody else?
Comment?
Mr. Tattelbaum?
Yeah, I think the other issue that's confusing, of course, is the flooding by the marketplace of offers that it's completely confusing even to someone who is waiting for it and expects it. And there's not much more we can do to help out people as to what's legit and what's not.
No, but it's good to have my number there because there have been a couple that I've been able to walk through. I got this piece of mail. What does this mean? Is this Dartmouth? No, it's not. No, that is not. You know what I mean? I can direct them to our website. I can tell them this is where you can go on your own computer to make sure that what you're looking at is what Dartmouth is actually putting out.
My second question is, I know this out of your control, but with the new rates of distribution coming from, is there anything we can do in comment or engage or inform, because this is something new that really is kind of overwhelming to all of us?
I can tell you that I have been very concerned about our regulated cost of electricity and natural gas in Massachusetts. My own personal, I live in Easton, my own personal cost of electricity is 34 cents a kilowatt hour, and we have the same aggregation partners that you do. I would recommend that you reach out to both your senator and your congressman to let them know that they should be doing whatever they can to keep these rates down. It's very expensive. If you were to take your regulated cost of electricity and break out every line item, there would be 50 of them. And there's an overwhelming preponderance of those that are funding good things like renewable energy and wind and solar and EVs and all of that stuff, but can we really afford to do that to this extent? And, you know, I just...
The Eversource electricity bill kind of breaks it down pretty good. The Eversource gas bill is absolutely abysmal. You don't know what's going on there. So what you need to do is, yes, you need to contact your state senator, your state representative, your congressman, but you also need to contact the governor's office and the state DPU.
Yes, 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 and yes. And I know that they have responded to that pressure. We recently had a very high gas rate period because it was very cold and a lot of people got hit by some very high gas rates. It did result in a reduction of what they are deducting from bills to pay to Mass Save. Mass Save was originally supposed to go from $400 billion to $500 billion in 1 year, and they were able to keep that down to 400 to 450.
That's Mass Save?
Mass Save. So
my question is, do they do $400 billion worth of business a year? I don't think they do.
I can tell you that...
Another question for the...
Yeah, I can tell you that we take advantage of every single dime of incentive money that I can get my hands on. Poor Gary has to sign all of those applications. So if there is an incentive for us to use for a project, we are getting it. And some of it has been very generous. We currently have a prioritization study going on for all of our K through 12 schools right now that is completely funded by the utility, which is all Mass Save money. We currently have an electrification study happening for the town hall that's completely funded by Mass Save money. So if there's Mass Save money out there, we're getting it. And we have actually enjoyed quite a bit of benefits from that. But that's what it takes. You really have to stay on it. You have to know we are coming into a new 3-year program now that's going to be starting in a week or so. My plan is around the end of April. I have some grants due on April 4th, so I have to keep myself available for that. But once that's hit, I'll be meeting with all the directors. We haven't had a good, solid meeting here. I was talking to Gary about that a little earlier. We need to meet with all of the directors of all of our departments, with Jim Kiley and John Burnett, with Tim Barber, with Tim Lancaster, with the chief, with all of those folks, and just talk about what have we done, where have we come from, where do we want to go, what's available, what's going to happen, what's the future hold, and just so that we can always stay focused. And after we do that, I'll be more than happy to come back and brief the board.
Great. So I need a motion to accept the amendment to the Municipal Aggregation Services Agreement.
So made.
Motion made by Mrs. Brooks, seconded by Mr. Mickelson. On the motion, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. All right, next we have a Mass Emergency Management Legislation Letter of Support. Mr. Carrero.
So, Mr. Chairman, our Director of Emergency Management, Tim Sheehan, had requested this letter. It basically breaks down to the 3 categories. It's modernizing the language that was in some of these initiatives, talking about Cold War era civil defense policies. Number 2, disaster relief fund, funding some of these funds that are not being funded now, and also like to properly fund MEMA. So this is a letter of support. This will be sent out to the proper channels, and he's looking for that from the board.
Board's pleasure.
Motion to sign the letter.
Motion made by Mr. Mickelson to offer the letter of support.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Brooks. On the motion, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none unanimous. Next item is the Tree Committee Town Hall Planning Request. Thanks for sticking around.
Oh, anytime for trees. I was just going to what's the lady's name? A lot of people in town don't know about the aggregation program, electrical.
A lot of people are on the program.
But they
all they have to
what
take a look at,
percent?
all they have to do is take a look at their bill, and if it says Dartmouth CEA, they're in the program.
But we did this for New Bedford Science Cafe. A lot of people in the area, and all I'm saying is if you have a way of publicizing the program more, get Dartmouth Week, send something out in tax bill, because a lot of people I know didn't know about it. So what percent of residents are using it?
High utilization.
Hmm?
Very high.
I think 90%.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Using it because at some point you had to opt in
Yeah.
or opt out.
Yeah, that was the confusing
Yeah.
part of it.
It's
In
over
order not
90%.
it's almost like
This would be years ago.
yeah, many years ago.
Several years ago.
Paying attention when it comes to money.
Well, I wasn't then. I just joined it.
Oh, good for you.
Anyways, thank you for having me. There was a resident who gave us $5,000 towards trees, specifically trees for the front of Town Hall. And if you recall, last October, we planted 2 trees from a prior fundraising in front of Town Hall, 2 tupelos. You can see them. They were planted by MON. Really did a great planting job. So we brought him back, and Tim Barber was there that day, and Ruth Furman also on the committee. And we went around. This was just a couple of weeks ago, and worked out a plan. It's a little sketchy. Excuse my drawing. Did everybody get this sheet?
Speaking of sketchy.
Yeah, sketchy. But they're good placements, I think, for 5 trees out there. Against the building, 2 white lilacs, and to the far left, where all those gas pipes are coming out, a big magnolia tree that's also going to be white. And then we have 2 smaller maple trees. In front, Tim is going to take down the old maple. That's a maple in pretty bad shape, as Gary knows at least. You've probably all seen it. And apparently the flag box is going to be moved.
Yes.
So, I'll be out there raking. Going to try and spruce that whole area up. So I've laid out the plan. Wanted to get this to you pretty soon because MON really advises the trees, 5 trees going in April, so they can get established.
Right. Okay.
Any thoughts or questions?
Questions?
No.
Board's pleasure?
I'll make a motion that we approve this plan and accept the trees.
Yay.
Second.
Second.
On the motion, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none unanimous. Good luck. Thank you.
Very much.
Thanks for what you do.
All right. Next item on the agenda, we have the Revolution 250. That's coming up. How you doing, Diane?
Just fine. How's
All right, what do we got?
everybody this evening? Revolution 250. I have sent to the Select Board a few emails over the last couple of months, basically outlining the intent of trying to get the ball rolling on Revolution 250. And during that process, I also partnered with the executive director of Revolution 250 for Massachusetts. I don't know, I hope that you all got this. Yes. Okay. So, so what we hope to do is take a regional approach to the South Coast with the communities that are comprised, of Old Dartmouth. So that would be Acushnet, Dartmouth, Fairhaven, New Bedford, and Westport. So our plan is to gather people from these communities. I've reached out to them, and I've asked for them to attend a meeting on March 21st, where Jonathan Lane and I will introduce this organization, in quotes. And so what we hope to do is, as I said, regionalize, but also information share and try to have a more unified approach to how we're going to celebrate our 250th anniversary. As you all know by now, there are various events that are taking place. This year, for example, Lexington and Concord, that's their 250th, because they started, fighting in 1775.
Yeah, they started the ruckus.
And our focus, to be honest, is making plans for 2028, because that was the time when the British invaded Bedford Village and also the Apponeganset River in what is now Paid-Naram, and destroyed what they could during that raid on September 6th and 7th. And so we're kind of starting early, but then again, not really, because I know some communities are doing their own thing and planning their events. And so this is just a way for us to organize ourselves while at the same time giving the communities the freedom to do their own thing, and also some support towards that effort. So we're in the planning stages. 2028 is a few years away, so we hope that we'll live that long to see it happen. But meanwhile, we are talking about trying to get grants, and that's another motivation to regionalize, because if each individual community goes after a grant, like let's say with the Mass Office in tourism, then they're more likely to be willing to give grant funds when communities are taking a regional approach. So that's an advantage also in terms of trying to get the funding for planning and then for other things along the way. So don't ask me why I am jumping into this, but I am. So I am coordinating this effort, as I said, with Jonathan Lane of Rev 250. And my ask this evening is to ask if there could be someone representing the town to join us on March 21st, other than myself, because I am not the self-appointed Dartmouth representative, in all honesty. We are going to be doing events, by the way, related to that at the Aiken House along the way, and we have started to do this before. So this is ongoing for us, and it is a witness site to the revolution. So it is an important site, especially now with these events beginning to take place.
I think we can get somebody. I think we can get somebody there. I know I will contact personally somebody I know who may be interested in going. He may not be aware of this, but I know he's done a few things in related to Paul Cuffey and whatnot. And
Brock.
Brock.
Yeah.
Yes.
As a matter of fact,
I'll contact Brock and I'll see if he's interested in doing this. I think this is a great idea. I just hope nobody does the reenaction of the burning of the village. You don't want to see, the village go down.
We can do fake.
No, we don't. No, we certainly don't. Nor do we want to see New Bedford go down either.
Right, so.
No.
But, yeah, I think we can, but I'll contact Brock and see if he's interested. But I think we can work and get somebody, from our office, to represent the town on this, so. I know I have a business meeting that day, so I can't be there, so.
Yeah, Brock is a great idea. I try to keep him in the loop, and since you mentioned him tonight, and you will reach out to him, I will do the same.
Yep.
And send him the material that I have.
Okay.
And also, you'll think about someone else to represent the town?
Yeah.
Because I'm also thinking between the Dartmouth Cultural Council and the Dartmouth Historic.
Yeah.
We've got to get them involved.
Yeah.
Because I think that it goes beyond promoting just one event in Dartmouth, but how can they be, if we designate it that it's going to be in the month of September
Yep,
of
this is right
2028.
this is right in the
working
wheelhouse
towards
of the
it.
Historical Commission, so.
Yep.
We get somebody there.
I've put it down in my calendar. I'm out of town at a conference it ends at 1:30. So if all goes well with the traffic, I've got you in here.
Okay, great.
So I am interested in, I too will speak to Sean, because I have a couple of other names that I'm thinking.
I'm out of the country.
That would be great.
And also, with the schools, I have no idea what they teach in the way of history at the school district.
I will reach out.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, this is going to be going on for a few years. So this is sort of the formative stage to bring people together, and then we'll just sort of move it along. So the more people, the more that we know that people are interested in this, then the more likely we can organize better.
Great, excellent.
Thank you.
Diane, appreciate it.
Diane was the only person that responded after I spoke a few weeks ago, so I thank you for that.
I mean, I was already working on it, and then when I heard you say, well, I came back from an MMA conference, I said, oh, okay, well, then maybe the select board needs to know what's going on behind the scenes.
Well, I feel much better that we're potentially 2028.
2028, but there may be other events before then.
Before then, but I think it helps Dartmouth remember that we were a part of it too.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it. All right, next item on the agenda, we have the interim town administrator MOA ratification. All right, board's pleasure on this.
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Mr. Mickelson, seconded by
Mrs. Brooks.
Mrs. Brooks. On the motion, any questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None unanimous. All right, and the last item on the agenda is the laborers memorandum of agreement. We're going to skip that this week. And so interim town administrator update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the veteran flag box has been temporarily set up in the second floor inside of the town hall in the south entrance. The box will permanently be affixed, as we talked at a couple meetings ago, to a cement slab alongside the mailbox in the front of the town hall once the weather permits. We're working with the DPW on that. Deadline to submit the warrant articles for town meeting has passed. Zoning articles are due on 3/12/2025. That's what I have.
Excellent. All right, old business. Anything on Bliss Corner?
No new business.
Okay. Donkachoke?
No new business.
Municipal broadband, we heard.
Yes.
Mass DEP Title V?
No new business.
We have no minutes. Select board updates. Anybody have any updates?
The only thing I want
Mrs. Brooks.
the only thing I want to mention is that right now, all of our sports teams have been eliminated, sadly. However, we do have a couple of Dartmouth girls that play on the Stang girls hockey team, which are going to the States. So we want to wish,
good for them.
we don't ordinarily wish much to Bishop Stang, so let's wish them well this round.
Well, they represent our
It's a
area.
conglomerate of many communities, so,
Yes.
I mean, good for them.
Hell of a team.
I mean, and especially.
And girls, I'm thrilled.
especially from where they were last year to where they are now. Remarkable
Amazing.
turnaround.
And also the Dartmouth music programs are doing well. They're all in competition right now. The indoor color guard, the percussion and dance group, all doing well, getting ready for their final shows in town, so watch for that. And also the concert season starts this last week and this week, so log on to DCTV and you'll be able to watch them all spring. And they live stream the concerts, so check that out.
Okay. Mr. O'Neill, you have anything?
No, all set, Sean.
Okay. Mr. Mickelson?
You said something?
Yeah, I'm all set, yep.
Are you all set? All right. Mr. Tattlebaum?
One quick announcement at the risk of shameless self-promotion, but I'll try to, this is not what it's about. I was asked by the Dartmouth Cultural Center to give a Lincoln talk as a fundraiser and to try to attract new members to the Dartmouth Cultural Council. So,
On who?
Abraham Lincoln.
Who's that?
I guess you'll be at the talk, Mr. McDonald, to find out.
As of now, I'll be speaking on April 1st, 8th, and the 15th. It's at 6 o'clock for an hour and a half, and I'll be talking about Lincoln's life. And they're very excited about it because they're looking to attract new and different members and also to fundraise. So we're going to charge to come in. So that's the reason why I mention it, because I think it could be an opportunity for
Gonna
them.
need to manage.
Mention it again next meeting.
April 1, 8, and 15. April Fool's Day is the first day we're doing it. So
Voting day.
So make sure you mention it next meeting, too.
And it's
yeah, well, thank you.
Voting day. You're
So
gonna
I'm excited about it, and they're great people down there, and whatever we can do to help them is a
I
great
think
thing
it's
to
great.
do. So
I
hope we
think it's
can
great taking something to passion and turning
make it
into something.
interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you, and I'm excited.
Surprised you
to-
didn't announce that it was his classmate.
We're charging, yeah.
Classmate.
After my $1,000 speaking fee, they may not make that much money, but
I'm gonna be your manager, so
I mean,
get 10%.
I'm going to take someone else's joke, but, you know, it's nice that you have a passion on a former classmate of Mr. Nicholson's. So,
Mr. Lincoln.
yeah.
So thank you.
All right,
Thank
so
you. That's it.
the last part of the information is that there was a common vic license finally approved for Sunrise Bakery. They are open. And the DPW has finally did everything that they possibly could, and the Board of Health was all very happy with everything that they were told to do and finally got done, and a long-lost hangout for some of our people has returned. So congratulations, good luck. I heard lines were out the door under their soft opening. So when they have an official opening, I'm sure we're going to need a cop somewhere. So with that,
Look at the
motion
flash.
to adjourn made by Mr. Mickelson, seconded by Mrs. Brooks. On the motion, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Good night, everybody.
Bye.